Welcome to finals of the Hong Kong Master Ball League, and on the left we have Chung, also known as Percy, and on the right we have Edward Fawn. And Edward leads with Incineroar and Miraidon against Percy's Volcarona and Rillaboom. And right now, on lead, I believe Percy has the advantage here because Percy has a faster fake out, he's got terrain control, and this Incineroar crucially does not have Flare Blitz because it's a supportive set on the Terrapgo's team. So, Edward is a VGC veteran who has been playing since the early days of VGC in 2011, and Zucho has been playing for half of that time. Like, Edward is a master at making defensive pivots and plays, which is completely different than Percy's aggressive aggressive playstyle. So we see the Volcarona go for the Quiver Dance and the Fake Out go into Miraidon. This is a choice for Miraidon. And Volcarona does go for the Quiver Dance, which means that it's got a stage of boosted defense. And Incineroar's Will-O-Wisp hits into the Rillaboom. And Rillaboom is going to take some burn chip from this, and notably, is going to be dealing much less damage to a potential Terrapgos in their back. We see Volcarona go for another Quiver Dance, and Rillaboom very quickly locking into the U-turn. So, Zucho is running a very offensive composition with Volcarona, Hydon, Chien-Pao, Dragonite, Rillaboom, and Zamazenta. And Edward is running the complete opposites with a very defensive composition. But we see that the Miraidon is going to Volt Switch out into the Toxapex. And we see Volcarona go for another Quiver Dance, get another boost to its special attack, special defense, and speed. And as Rillaboom goes for the U-turn and returns to Percy's bench. Percy opts to switch into Miraidon in order to prevent Toxapex from getting more HP recovery. And Incineroar goes for the Party Shot, which lowers Miraidon's attack special attack and allows Edward to reposition. Repositions forward. So right now, I would say that Zuchong has the advantage here. Zuchong is playing very proactively with a +2/+2/+2 Volcarona. And Edward has Toxapex on her field, which is a very passive Pokemon if you've played singles before. Toxapex recovers his HP using the leftovers held item, and let me just explain Edward's team composition right now. So Edward is running a team consisting of Miraidon Terrapagos, Incineroar, Sinistra, Ogerpon Heartflame, and Toxapex. So, it's just a team composition that supports Terrapagos to set up and deal consistent damage. So why Toxapex? Toxapex is one of the better Pokemon to deal into Zamazenta and Koraidon. So we see it's Edward actually terrestrializing the Miraidon into the electric type, hoping to not get knocked out by the opposing Draco Meteor, as we see Volcarona go for the Protect. And Miraidon going for the Volt Switch into the Miraidon, and we see Edward actually making a read here, not protecting the Toxapex. As Percy switches in Rillaboom, shutting down the Electric Terrain and the Hadron Engine boost. So right now, Grassy Terrain is active, and the Electric Drift goes into the Protect on Volcarona. Now, Percy's in prime position to sweep in this Volcarona. So Toxapex goes very toxic onto the Volcarona, which is blocked by Protect. Edward is now on the back foot with +2/+2/+2 Volcarona threatening to sweep through his team. We see Incineroar take some chip damage from Burn, and we see Ursa immediately lock into Terra Grass and going for the Giga Drain, and we see easy lock to Terra Grass Giga Drain onto the Toxapex. Toxapex is one of the most awesome Pokemon, but the reason it does so well is that it beats Zamazenta and it beats He's Koradon can chip it down with Infestation Toxic, so we see the Miraidon switch out into the Incineroar slot. But this Incineroar is not doing much damage to this Volcarona. Because it does not have Flare Blitz. If this Incineroar had Flare Blitz, it would be a completely different story. So we see the Volcarona terrestrialize the grass, resisting the potential electro drifts from the Miraidon that it locked itself into, and increasing the damage from the Giga Drain. We see her fake out go into Toxapex, and Giga Drain does so much damage, just over half the Toxapex, because of Toxapex's low HP stat. This Giga Drain not only is +2 special attack, it's also boosted by the grassy terrain and Terra as well. So right now, Edward is in prime position to go for fake outs, and Edward needs to go for a raid right now in order to win this game. In order to win this game, Edward must go for a raid. Let's go for a raid. He's playing this game so dominantly, and Isidore switches out into Finistra, which heals Toxapex with its hospitality ability. So Volcarona does go for Protect. And Rillaboom's U-turn breaks Sinistra's Focus Sash and crits. That's a very pathetic critical hit. And Zuto's saying, no, you're not getting the grassy terrain recovery. I'm not letting you get your Focus Sash back by switching into Miraidon and now putting in on so much pressure. And Toxapex's Toxic goes into Volcarona, which is very unfortunate for Edward. Edward is getting these reads completely wrong, and Percy is playing this game so dominantly. So dominantly. So right now, Volcarona could just Fiery Dance and knock out the Sinistra. And since this... And to knock out the Sinistra right now. No, right now, this is a +2. +2 of Volcarona. We see Sinistra switch out into Incineroar, and Incineroar's going to intimidate the Volcarona and Miraidon, and hopefully able to survive the turn. We see Toxapex go for the Baneful Bunker, and we see Miraidon actually move first. So, on our screen, right there, we see that Volcarona has 152 speed and is at +2. Which means that his Choice Scarf Miraidon not only is a Choice Scarf, it's also max speed with Timid investment. Which is very good information that Edward could get from this game. Even if he loses. Edward, once again, playing very passively due to the nature of his team, and Toxapex really needs to put in work in order to help Edward bring home the sets. So the Volcarona goes for the Protect, and Edward doesn't go for the Fake Outs, and Miraidon's special attack gets dropped. And Toxapex goes for the Infestation, which means that Miraidon not only is a getting tripped over time, it also means that even though it's a -4 special attack, it cannot switch out, which could be very, very annoying. It could be very, very annoying. And we see Edward go for go into his own Baridon, hopefully able to take a couple hits. And we see Percy going for Fiery Dance. Draco Meteor goes into Baridon doing 20% of Baridon's HP. That's the weakest Draco Meteor I've seen all weekend. We see Fiery Dance go into the Baridon. And it gets a special attack boost, which means that Edward's game plan of going for Snarl with Maridon and hopefully surviving this Volcarona goes down the drain because this Volcarona is now at +2/+2 special attack because of Fiery Dance Raise. We see the Toxapex go for the Toxic, but it's a little too late as this Volcarona is wreaking havoc across Edward's team. As both of Percy's Pokemon take shift from Infestation. We see the Volcarona go for the Fiery Dance again, hoping to fish for another special attack boost. So Edward's really considering his options right now. Edward is severely on the back foot. He cannot break through this Volcarona. Even if he does, this Volcarona will have dealt too much to his team. And we see the Draco Meteor from Percy's side knock out the Rhydon on Edward's side. And Volcarona goes for the Fiery Dance, which does around 20% of Toxapex's HP, and gets another special attack boost. Toxapex does go for the Infestation, which means that Volcarona is now in the blender of being infested. And, however, Infestation, despite being a special attack, actually makes contact, and it gets a flame 30% chance of proccing Flame Body. Usually the Toxapex's leftovers is effectively neutralized. And we see some more chip damage being dealt to Miraidon and Volcarona. Volcarona and Electric Terrain is now gone. So Edward is forced to send out Sinisha, which is his last Pokemon, and Sinisha's Hospitality heals Toxapex back to around 95%. 95%, and Toxapex goes for the Maneful Bunker, hoping that Percy messes up and doubles into it. This Volcarona goes for Fiery Dance and KOs the Sinisha. So what Edward was playing to his out. He needed Zuchong to double the Toxapex and go for Trick Room and to bank on Toxapex surviving the turn so that the Toxapex can further chip down Percy's team. And we see Infestation deal more damage to Miraidon and the Volcarona. Now, this Miraidon is at -6, which is not doing a lot of damage. And not to mention that Hadron Engine is disabled right now. So, it's not doing a lot of damage and is locked in. Now, Edward might be using this time to really think about what he needs to do for Game 2. Game 2 because this Game 1 is borderline unwinnable. Rhydon goes for Draco Meteor, which does 5% of around 5% of Toxapex's HP, and Volcarona's Giga Drain does around 60% of Toxapex's HP, and heals it back to high yellow HP. and Miraidon gets toxic, which means that the Miraidon is on an even quicker timer, this time taking 18% of his HP instead of the 12% that Infestation does. So your Toxic bringing Volcarona down to where it started, actually. And we see both Pokemon take some more damage from Infestation. Now, Edward could take this opportunity to who protects the Toxapex and force Zuchong to reveal his final unrevealed Pokemon so that he could adapt to it in Game 2. His Toxapex. So now moving on to right now, a lot of animation is playing, which means that Edward gets a lot of time to think. And Miraidon takes more damage from the Toxic and goes down. Still, and so does Volcarona. Volcarona is more and more damage from the Toxic, and Volcarona succumbs to her Toxic damage. So right now, Zuchong is forced to reveal that his last Pokemon is, in fact, Zamazenta. So, now moving on to Game 2 adaptations. Edward could go for the Terapagos mode, which he's most skilled at, or he could bring the Ogerpon Heartflame, because Ogerpon Heartflame, after terrestrializing, has a good matchup into the Volcarona, which Edward could not really break that easily. It also has a good matchup into the Zamazenta and the Rillaboom. And Body Press takes out the Toxapex from low yellow HP, which is good information for Zuchong to have in Game 2. We're moving on to Game 2 of the Grand Finals of the Hong Kong Master Ball League, and Zuchong is currently up 1 game. Heyman Edward needs to play out of his mind in order to beat this Volcarona. Once again, both players are leading the same lead from Game 1. I wonder what Edward will do. Will we see an adaptation of Ogerpon Heartflame or Terapagos? Oh. Obviously, Percy won Game 1 really, really convincingly, playing near perfectly, and Edward was very, very... It really felt like Edward was really, really uncomfortable in that Game 1 situation. So we see our Fake Out go into the Incineroar, and Rillaboom takes some chip from the Rocky Helmets. And we see Incineroar move next, which means that it went for Fake Outs, and Miraidon goes a Volt Switch onto the Volcarona, and we see Edward go into Toxapex once again, really hoping that maybe if I Toxic the Volcarona early before it wreaks havoc on my team, I could deal with it. The Volcarona going for the Quiver Dance once again, increasing its special attack, special defense, and speed at one stage, and you see that Volcarona, Rillaboom, and Incineroar all get Grassy Terrain recovery. From the Grassy Terrain, thanks to Rillaboom setting it up earlier with Grassy Surge. So we see Volcarona protects, and Edward really needs to make a read in order to get out of this situation. We see the Rillaboom go for the U-turn on the Incineroar, taking some more chip damage from the Rocky Helmets. And Percy actually opts to switch in the Miraidon, which is going to override the Grassy Terrain. And Incineroar goes for a Party Shot into the Miraidon, which means that Miraidon's dealing less damage. Not less and less, I was thinking about Draco. So Incineroar goes back to Edward's bench, and Edward was going to switch in Miraidon, despite knowing that knowing that the opponent's Miraidon is actually faster. And we see that our Toxapex infest the Miraidons. and Murato's taking chip damage over time. Edward is making the right reads, attacking into the other slot when Volcarona is protecting. But right now, Toxapex is in a lot of trouble right now. Because of the Inco Meteor. Because of a potential electro drift or volt switch coming out, and it doesn't want to terrasilize into grass because there's might be a potential Terrapagos in the back. Heck, and it terrasilizes into grass, it loses to Volcarona even harder. We see terrasilization on a board. It's actually going to be Volcarona on Percy's side of the field. What this does is that it resists Electro Drift from Rhydon, so we see the Toxapex go for the Baneful Bunker. And we see Miraidon going for the Volt Switch onto the opposing Miraidon, which means that and Edward made the hard, conscious choice to not terrasilize the Miraidon. And reading, yes, you're going to Electro Drift into my Toxapex. You see Miraidon go for the Electro Drift into the Volcarona and dealing pitiful damage, to be honest. And we see the Giga Drain going into the Miraidon. Miraidon, with Uchong reading into the Terra Electric and Terra Electric on the Miraidon. And now, Edward's in a really bad position right now because Rillaboom can fake out into the Toxapex, and Volcarona can go for another Quiver Dance. And Brydon is stuck using Electro Drifts against two grass types in grassy terrain. So we see that Edward repositioning, bringing out Incineroar for fake out pressure and to also resist both grass types attacks. Well, one honorary grass type because it's terrestrialized right now. We see Volcarona go for the Giga Drain onto the Toxapex, dealing around 1/3 of Toxapex's HP and recovering most of it. And Rhydon goes for Woodhammer, doesn't kill the Toxapex, but the Toxapex sure is in range of another. And we see our Toxapex go for the Toxic. Onto the Volcarona. And we see that all Pokemon in the field recover some HP from the grassy terrain, and Toxapex is notably going to recover 12, I think 13% of his HP from grassy terrain. Okay, and leftovers. We see another Quiver Dance coming out from Volcarona, and we see Woodhammer coming out. So, Edward switching out into Miraidon. Overriding the grassy terrain and setting up the electric terrain. Hopefully, Edward will be able to break through this Volcarona, and this Volcarona goes for another Quiver Dance, which means that it's now the fastest thing on the field. Goes for Woodhammer, which does around like 15-20% of Miraidon's HP, and Incineroar goes for the parting shot, reading that the Rillaboom might go for a U-turn. And when we see he Toxapex again, Toxapex regains 6% of his HP because of leftovers, and Volcarona takes more and more damage every turn from the Toxic. So, Edward really, really needs this Volcarona gone in order for the rest of his team to put in work. In order to Miraidon to deal massive damage to the different side of the field. Neutral is playing this set so well, and we see their Giga Drain go into the Toxapex, and Volcarona recovers more of its HP, almost back to full now. And we see the Miraidon go for the Draco Meteor onto the Rillaboom and pick up for KO. And it actually picks for KO. And we see their Toxapex go for Infestation. Infestation is a contact move, despite it being special. Despite being a special attack, and Volcarona gets the Flame Body. Which means that his Volcarona has effectively neutralized its the Toxapex's leftovers item. Yes, Volcarona is taking more and more damage from the Toxic, but this Toxapex needs to switch out in order for more damage to be dealt to it. You see Chung sending out the very speedy Miraidon. Miraidon. Very speedy Miraidon, which is max speed, timid, and choice scarf. So we see that Edward opting to switch out the Miraidon here to reset the -2. Actually sent out Sinistra as slash, so we see no adaptations from Edward. We see Toxapex go for the Baneful Bunker. Edward could be sacrificing the Sinistra in order for momentum to go into Incineroar. And Sinistra survives the Draco Meteor because of its Focus Sash. It's a Focus Sash Sinistra with max speed and timid nature, and Volcarona goes for a Giga Drain and recovers an astounding 1 HP. And Sinistra on Edward's side faints. So now Toxapex is back at 50%. However, it still doesn't really want to take hits that well. So right now, Edward does have Incineroar, and Incineroar can threaten Fake Outs into the Volcarona, which means that if the Volcarona protects, it's going to get knocked out. However, with Sinistra gone, and the fact that the Miraidon on Percy's side is faster, so, well, it's still going to be really rough for Edward, actually. For Edward, actually. So, it's choice going to opt to switch out the Miraidon into the Zamazenta, which is his last Pokemon. And we see the Dauntless Shield activates. The Incineroar goes for the Fake Outs onto the Volcarona, not going for any fancy play, and we see the Toxapex go for the Infestation onto the Zamazenta. And it's going to chip the Zamazenta for some of its HP every turn, but over time that adds up. Toxapex is a very defensive Pokemon, but I don't think it can survive the onslaught of Miraidon and Zamazenta at the same time. Sure, Edward might have the Pokemon advantage, but two of Edward's Pokemon are really passive. And Miraidon gets sent out onto the field. With the Hadron Engine and goes for the... And Percy here actually just opts to double into the Incineroar, not going for any fancy play. Like, saying, if you switch into Miraidon, I KO you. If you stay in, I KO you. But the thing is, Edward's Miraidon is also really bulky. I believe it is near max HP. HP. It is a very slow, very bulky Scarf Mariah with choice to patch up its speed. So, and Edward actually opts to terrestrialize the Incineroar, reading that Chung will go for the Electro Drifts onto the Toxapex slot. But Chung doesn't fall for it, goes for a Draco Meteor, crits the instant, and knocks it out. So Edward has spent his Terra for nothing. And Zamazenta's Body Press is going to bring Toxapex into low yellow HP, and Toxapex is going to use Infestation against the Miraidon. Miraidon. We see our Toxapex get still, we see a lot of damage shipping animations here. So that's more time for Edward to think about his next move. But right now, Edward really needs this Miraidon gone. As Edward goes into his own Miraidon. So, Draco Meteor is a very powerful move, which means that it also has a chance to miss. There's a 10% chance that this Miraidon dodges it. And retaliates with its own Draco Meteor. But the chances are very slim. Edward really needs this in order to push the series to a game 3. Miraidon goes for Draco Meteor, and it connects in Miraidon and knocks it out. So, despite being -2, and the Zamazenta's Body Press goes into the Toxapex and knocks it out, and Zuchong takes home the Hong Kong Master Ball League with a 2-0 record in final.